So, this week, I heard an interesting story that I thought I'd share with you this morning. And it's one that some of you might have heard. This is a different version than I'd heard before. So once, some time ago, or maybe yesterday, or maybe a month ago, there was an eagle's nest, and one of the eggs fell out. And it didn't break when it hit the ground, probably because we no longer have DDT in this country. But the shell was strong, and so it rolled down to a flat place, and somebody found the egg and took it home and put it in one of the nests in his chicken house. You know, it's recruiting, and so he thought, well, I don't know what kind of egg this is, and we'll see. So at the appropriate time, this thing popped out of the egg shell. And it was bigger than the chickens, but, you know, what was it? Well, it turned out it was an eagle. And so this eagle grew up being tended by the grown-up chickens, and this eagle learned to catch worms and to eat the seeds, you know, pecking along in the chicken yard. Some of y'all have chickens and know what that's like. And so when it got upset, it would just like flap its wings, and sometimes the feathers would fly. And if it got really upset, it would sort of jump up in the air and maybe go 3 or 4 feet and then go back to land. And he was a good chicken. You know, he knew exactly what to do. But one day, this chicken looked up in the sky, and here was this magnificent eagle going around in circles. Now, in my neighborhood, that would mean it was chicken hunting. But for this story, it was a magnificent eagle that was just floating around in the air. It was so beautiful and amazing. And the giant chicken, who was an eagle, said to the other chickens, "What is that?" And the chicken said, "That's an eagle. It's the most powerful thing that I know." And the chicken eagle said, "Oh, it's so wonderful." And the other chicken said, "Yes, but we're not like that. You know, here's a roly-poly for you to eat over here." And so that little eagle ate the roly-poly and continued to get food around the chicken yard for the rest of his life. And he ended up, at the end of his life, still thinking he was a chicken. Now, there are a lot of things that we can think about this story. So one of them might be, how in the world could that eagle that could have been so majestic and sort of the master of the sky, how could he end up staying in a chicken yard after he had seen another eagle? Well, it might have been because no one ever told the eagle that he belonged to anywhere other than a chicken yard. Or maybe he was afraid to think about anything other than being a chicken. It might have felt really scary to think about, whoa, what if I could fly? She never questioned who she was or what she believed, so she stayed right there on the ground. There was no expectation that she would be anything other than a chicken. You know, a whole lot of us human beings are much like the eagle who didn't know who she or he was. Sometimes we learn as children and as adults too, wonderful messages that help us know that we're loved and special. But sometimes, maybe it's school, or when we're playing on the playground, or we're at a certain job, we're bullied or ignored or hurt in some way. Then we might carry with us messages and thoughts about who we are. Some of what we carry around with us might be old tapes that go on in our mind, or I should say now, CDs that keep going on in our mind that tell us we're not good enough or smart enough or nice enough or pretty enough, whatever those messages are. The list can go on and on. You know what whirls around in your head. Some of us grew up with messages about how we had to believe a certain way, or we had to be a certain way. We weren't told that we could ask questions, or that we could disagree with what we should believe, or to raise our heads like the proverbial chicken yard, because we might see the world in a different way. We might see the world as grand and large as it is, as diverse and amazing, and very different from that little chicken yard. We might have greater expectations of who we might want to be. So it might be a good practice for each of us to look in the mirror, to see just what we see in that reflection. Not only the reflection that we see today, but an inkling of who we might become. We need to look at what we carry with us in our minds and hearts so we can just let go of images and words and thoughts that have been hurtful or negative. In order to fly, that eagle would have had to do some work. It would have had to leave the image of what it was to claim what it could be. And that's not easy to do. And it's especially not easy to do when we feel alone. Because we all need family and friends and community to help us see ourselves with new eyes. We need to have folks around us to support us as we explore how we can be our best selves. And often, becoming our true selves takes practice. You know, the eagle in the chicken yard couldn't have just looked up in the sky and decided it was really an eagle. First, it would have to do some practice to develop wing muscles. And then, when eagles in the wild learn to fly, they learn a little bit at a time. First, they sort of get on a branch and move down the branch, and then they learn to jump from one branch to another. And only after they're comfortable with themselves, with their wings that are stronger, only then do they actually begin to fly. And just maybe we need to begin to find our own new ideas and horizons by taking small steps. Some of us may need to do that by, if we're in school, practicing math problems or writing. Some of us may need to do that by learning new skills at work or new hobbies. For some of us, it might mean just coming through the door and exploring new thoughts and ways of being. Joining a faith community is a bit like looking at the world and ourselves in a new way. So I invite all of us to stretch our minds and our wings so that our hearts and minds can be open to new ways of thinking about the world and ourselves. We need to seek places in the world where we can live out what is right and true for us. The places where we can find answers to our heart's desire. Often we find the people and places we can trust to help us develop new muscles and skills, rather than continuing to be around those who tell us who we should be or what we should believe.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the service, this month's theme is expectation. And this comes from the Unitarian Universalist Association Soul Matters program, and every month we receive, as part of our subscription, several packets with various resources in them. And one of them is a theme-based monthly mantra, which we're going to share with you this morning. And I invite you to think of this as a personal or family saying, a tool for your journey, a reminder that helps us refocus and steady ourselves and our kids as we navigate through life's challenges and opportunities. September's mantra. When I am caught up in my own expectations or complaining about having let myself down, spending a lot of mental and emotional energy thinking about what I should do or should have done instead of what I did or didn't do, my dear UU friend Sherry says to me, "Stop shouldn't on yourself." And that never fails to make me giggle. Laughter is, of course, a welcome antidote to all that circular or stuck thinking. And the surprise of the statement jolts me back into self-compassion. This month's mantra is for when you hear your child or yourself or friend saying, "I should have done blank," or "you should blank," or "so-and-so should have blank." Playfully interrupt that idea with "stop shouldn't on yourself," or "don't should on me." Instead, get curious about why your expectations for yourself or another didn't match up with reality, and see if there's a way or two to still move forward. You could play around with changing should have to could have, and then talk about the different outcomes that might have come from a different choice.
So here we are today as people who want to move into this new school year or work year, as people who expect more from ourselves but without the should guilt. We know that each of us needs support and an understanding that we carry with us the blessing of our family and community to be our very best selves. For many of us, school started last week, or it may feel like a month ago already. Or perhaps a new job began, or more responsibilities, or we're going back to teaching, or perhaps you might be newly retired and don't have all that pressure. Some of us are excited about new beginnings. We're eager to start a new school year or get to a new classroom. Or some of us are homeschooled and we have new beginnings too, just not in the same way that if we were in a different kind of classroom. A new year means new subjects. Some of us are excited about new beginnings, whether we're in school or at work. So let each of us, no matter what kind of new beginning we might be experiencing in our lives, find excitement in new journeys. Some of us are nervous about what's coming. Some of us are scared. Some of us try hard to be big and brave, and that's not always easy. For some of us, school or work is a place where we really don't want to be. So let's be supportive of those who are nervous about what lies ahead.